all, it's Catherine from Teaching in the Dark. Welcome back to my channel. On this channel you will find videos all about teaching English as a second language online, adapting to life as a legally blind person in a sighted world, and generally making life awesome, because it should be awesome. Today we are going to get into a little bit of the differences between VIPKid and GogoKid from my perspective. I did teach for GogoKid for a short time. I got hired with them in October of 2019 and I taught for a couple of months with them. Very part-time. VIPKid was still very much my main platform that I preferred to teach with, and I actually chose not to renew my contract with GogoKid. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why that is and some of the differences that I noticed. Nothing against GogoKid. They were very nice, and I know for a lot of people they are really an awesome platform and people love them. They just weren't the right fit for me. And so I just wanted to explore that a little bit in case you are looking to become an online ESL teacher. And you know, there are so many companies out there, and I have experience with 2 of them. So I'm just gonna share my experience and how I felt going through both hiring processes and all of that kind of stuff. Before we get started, if you like my channel, if you like the videos I put out, and if you like this video in particular, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell so that you are notified every single time I post a new video. With that said, let's dive in. So I discovered VIPKid about a little over a year ago, in March of 2019. Well, okay, technically it was February, but I didn't get hired and sign my contract until March, so I've been teaching with VIPKid for just over a year. In late September, I decided to apply for GogoKid as well. For various reasons. I'd heard a lot of teachers talking about GogoKid, and I knew that a lot of VIPKid teachers also taught for GogoKid, and they all had very compelling reasons for, you know, teaching with 2 different companies. You know, job security, stability. If you, for some reason, have a problem with one company, and you know, maybe your contract is terminated for some reason, you still have the other company. Variety, learning new skills, it just all kinds of great reasons for teaching with 2 companies. And so I thought, you know what, that's a really good idea. And so I applied. And part of me also was curious, you know, VIPKid hired me, I wonder if GogoKid will. And not only do I wonder if they will, I wonder if my base pay will be higher or lower or the same, or, you know, just, there was part of me that was just curious, and part of me that also said, you know, all these other teachers are doing it, it's a really good idea, they have some really good reasons for doing it, I'm gonna try it. So I tried it. And I definitely noticed some big differences. The first difference that I noticed with GogoKid was that they required a Tesol certification. This was not something that they required originally, but by the time I applied, the Chinese Ministry of Education had changed their requirements for ESL teachers. And so where they didn't require a Tesol certification initially, by October of 2019, they were requiring that. You either had to have a teaching certificate from your local government, or you needed to have a Tesol. So because I don't have an active teaching certificate, I chose to go ahead and get my TESOL. And I'm very glad I did that, regardless of anything. It was a good experience. It's a certificate that I now have, which is good. You know, it never hurts to have these kinds of certifications related to your actual job. So I'm glad I did it, but that was definitely something that I was like, oh, wow, okay, I need to go get this now. So that was the first difference. GogoKid required that you find and get a TESOL certification on your own. VIPKid actually has a TESOL certification built into their program and built into their hiring process, which honestly I feel like I got a lot more out of the certification that I got when I got hired with GogoKid. It was still self-study. It was still very much, you know, read this, answer these questions, there you go, here's your certificate, which I don't find to be the most thorough of educations, but it was certainly good, and I definitely felt like I got a lot more out of it. VIPKid's certification will work with VIPKid and VIPKid only. You cannot take it with you. So it's also nice to have this other certificate because I can take the TESOL certificate with me that I got when I was hired with GogoKid. I can take that with me to whatever else I might choose to do in life. So that was nice, and honestly, I just found it to be much more thorough and generally more helpful. If you are interested, I will link the certification that I got down below. It is not an affiliate link. I'm not getting any money from them, but it is the one that I got, and as I said, it was useful. I think a face-to-face program at a university or an online program, again, through like a university where you have actual teachers to talk to and, you know, hash things out with and maybe get more practice, would honestly be more useful. And I think I would have gotten a lot more out of that. I actually still hope to take a course like that. We'll see what ends up happening with our world and our universities and everything. But I still hope to do something like that because I just think that would be much more helpful. So that was the first big difference that I noticed, was just the requirement for getting hired with the TESOL. And again, that wasn't so much GogoKid as the Chinese Ministry of Education wanting international teachers to have these particular certifications. The second difference I noticed in particular was the technology used. Both companies have similar requirements for internet speed and actual, you know, like computer hardware and that kind of stuff. I don't really know that much about technology, honestly, but from what I noticed, for the most part, they weren't terribly different. The biggest difference I noticed was that VIPKid lets you teach on an iPad, and GogoKid does not. With GogoKid, you do have to have a computer with a webcam. There is no ability to teach on an iPad. That might change. I'm sure it will at some point. Things are always changing, and honestly, VIPKid and GogoKid seem very similar to me in a lot of ways, and so it wouldn't surprise me if they did come up with an app or some kind of option to allow teachers to teach with their iPads, but they don't have one, as far as I know, right now. There isn't one. So that was one big difference, and by the time I got hired with GogoKid, I was thoroughly on team teach from your iPad for VIPKid. So that got interesting. On days that I would have GogoKid classes, I would have to switch my setup around so that I could set up my laptop and all of that. So it was a little bit annoying. Teaching from an actual computer isn't a deal breaker for me, but if you watch my video about how I adapt teaching online to work with a visual impairment, you will find out that part of how I do that and part of how I make teaching smooth for me is teaching with an iPad because of the touchscreen specifically. So while having to use a computer isn't necessarily a deal breaker, it's not my preferred method of teaching. So that was the biggest thing technology-wise that I noticed. Everything else was very similar. They still have IT support. They still, require decent internet. They still require a decent, hardware. You still need a headset of some kind, whether it's Bluetooth or wired like this one. You still need a good webcam. All the things for the most part are the same, except you just can't teach from an iPad on GogoKid. And obviously, their teacher's portal is slightly different. Naturally, there are going to be some differences on that side of things. The next difference I really noticed was actually in the curriculum itself. VIPKid, I feel like their lessons are, for the most part, very jam-packed with content. There's a lot to get through, a lot to go over. Even on the simpler sort of levels 1 and 2 slides, you have a couple of different concepts on one slide to teach and to practice. And with GogoKid, I found the curriculum very simple. Even for the more advanced students, it just seemed simple. It really didn't seem to me to be quite as rigorous, which again has nothing against GogoKid, nothing against their way of teaching, their way of doing things. For me, it felt a little bit too simple. I was finding, and I'm someone who struggles to finish on time, to get through everything in 25 minutes, and I was finding with GogoKid, I'm pulling down the whiteboard and saying, okay, can you write this? Can you draw that? Trying to extend lessons with students who didn't have a whole lot of English to really do a whole lot with conversation and that kind of stuff, or trying with the older kids, just trying to get them talking a little bit more, because oh my goodness, we're already done. It just went by a little too fast, and I personally prefer the slightly more complex curriculum of VIPKid. As a teacher, I think it's nice to have a little bit more to work with. While I thoroughly enjoy having time to chat with my students and having time to sort of go over things that they're having trouble with and really drive home some concepts that I know they're struggling with, having 3, 4, maybe even 5 minutes consistently at the end of a lesson like I was with GogoKid just really wasn't working for me. And this was using a computer, which takes me longer. It just was not working. I really didn't enjoy that aspect of it. So their curriculum definitely was different. One thing I really liked about GogoKid's curriculum is that their slides have a lot more animations than VIPKid's slides do. For just about every class that I taught, the slides were interactive. Some of the upper level classes weren't quite as interactive, but even there, like the intro song and the outro songs, you could click it and one of the cute little GogoKid characters would sing, and as the teacher, you could sing along with it, or you could just mouth the words or do some motions or something. And I really enjoyed the interactive aspect of their slides. I thought GogoKid had a really nice interactive function. The animations were adorable. It was really fun to see those things. Even as an adult, as the teacher, oh, this is so much fun. I click through and yay! So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that about their curriculum and their slides. That's one thing I do kind of wish VIPKid did a little bit more of, was just a little bit more animation, even for older students. I think it's fun. I think it brings a little bit of magic, and I think the students can enjoy it, the teachers can enjoy it, and I really like that even older students could, interact and drag and drop things on the slides and all, which is something I do wish VIPKid would build more of that into their lessons. I think it would be beneficial. So that was one thing I really enjoyed. GogoKid's classroom was also slightly different. They have a whiteboard that you can click on in the classroom to bring down on top of whatever slide you happen to be on, instead of having to hunt for the blank slide at the end of the lesson like you do with VIPKid. And so again, I really like that, because then when we were learning letters, I could just bring down the whiteboard and ask the student to write whatever letter we were talking about. And I found that very helpful. And it's something I do kind of miss. I miss having that option. So that's really the biggest thing I've noticed with the curriculum, is just that VIPKid's a little bit more complex, but they don't have as many animations. And if you want music, you have to make it yourself in most of their lessons. Whereas GogoKid had music ready-made. Their curriculum was a little bit simpler, even for older kids. And in general, they had more classroom functions than VIPKid does. So that was very interesting. I also noticed the pay actually was different. It could just be because I actually had more experience at this point. It could be because GogoKid just skews up a little bit. I'm not really sure. But my base pay was 50 cents higher per class with GogoKid than it is with VIPKid. So that was interesting. Again, I'm not sure if it was just my level of experience by the time I interviewed, or if they do just tend to skew a little bit higher. I really am not sure. I'd be very interested to know if you got hired with both companies around the same time. Drop a comment below and just let me know, because I'm really curious. You don't have to tell me what your actual pay is, but I'm very curious. Did you get the same base pay for both companies when you were hired? Was one a little higher than the other? Was one a little lower than the other? I'm really curious. I just would love to know. As I said, for me it was a little bit higher, but then again, by that point I had been with VIPKid for 6 months, so it's entirely possible that simply having that extra bit of experience bumped me up. I don't know. Curious. They do pay you per class, and each class is 25 minutes long in VIPKid and in GogoKid. Both are the same there. The other major difference that I noticed was the incentives. Okay. I know VIPKid has recently changed their incentive program, so if you have recently been hired, this is probably different. Actually, I'm sure it's different. I'm not entirely certain what the incentive program is now for VIPKid. I've tried to follow it like 3 or 4 times, and it's still confusing me. So I really need to spend some time and watch it and figure it out, and maybe even write it out. I don't know. It's not quite making sense to me the way they're doing things now. However, when I got hired with VIPKid, the incentives were pretty straightforward. You get your base pay. Then on top of that, if you start your class on time, so you're not late, you're not, basically, so if you're not late and you don't miss the class entirely, then you get an extra $1 for each class that you do that. And then as soon as you hit 45 classes taught in a month, you get an additional $1 for every single class you teach that month. So you get $1 for each of those 45 classes up until that point, and then $1 for each class after that. So with those two incentives, you can then have an extra $2 for every single class, which adds up to an extra $4 per hour. That is a big deal, and it's really awesome. And it's a very straightforward system. It's really easy to figure out if you're getting your incentive or not, and if you should have your incentive or not. GogoKid was a little bit more complicated, and I don't know, again, at this point, VIPKid and GogoKid might be very similar with their incentive programs. As I said, I'm still rather confused about the new way VIPKid is doing things. But with GogoKid, they have a credit score and your number or your teacher level or whatever that number is. I know it changed at some point. Determined your incentive rate and if you got your incentive, and they would deduct points for not showing up to classes or starting classes late consistently or low parent feedback. They would add points for good parent feedback, starting on time, showing up to everything. never fully understood how that worked. I never really knew if I was getting an incentive from GogoKid or not. I honestly didn't know how much it was supposed to be. They would pay me and I'd say, okay, awesome, I'm just going to assume this is right because I honestly don't understand what you're trying to do here. So, I mean, there was that. I did find that very confusing. Again, it may be more straightforward now. I'm honestly not sure. I just had so much trouble following it to begin with. And then I stopped teaching with them, and so they would send out, updates or something, and I just would be like, okay, fine, but I'm not teaching with you, so. So yeah, that was, meh. There I was. So that's the big thing I've noticed with pay, is that yes, GogoKid seemed to have a higher base rate, but I really never got a good grip on their incentive program, so I'm not sure if overall I was actually making more money with GogoKid than I was with VIPKid. I don't know. But I really like how straightforward VIPKid is with that, or at least how they were. We'll see how I feel about this new program once I get a handle on it. But it was really easy to figure out if I should be getting incentives, how much I was getting for incentives, and what my pay should actually be. So I really appreciate that about VIPKid. They're just a little bit more straightforward with the pay. You know what you're getting, you know when you're getting it, and it's pretty simple. I really like that. Finally, the really big difference I noticed between the two companies, with GogoKid, when you go to sign a contract, whether it's your first one or your second one or whatever number you happen to be on, you have to take a quiz. Like, they don't trust you to read the contract, so you have to take a quiz. And the questions, honestly, are, like, kind of obscure. And some of them, you read the choices for the answers, and it's just like, wait, how do you want me to answer this? So I didn't appreciate that. I do read the contracts before I sign them. I do read them to make sure nothing's changed and to make sure I know what's happening. But I really didn't appreciate like having to prove that I'd read it. So in terms of teaching, it went fine. I actually got booked a lot sooner through GogoKid than I did when I was first hired with VIPKid. The biggest thing I noticed was I had trouble, like, I didn't tend to get rebooked on GogoKid, and it was a lot harder. And granted, VIPKid was still my main platform. I was really only giving 1 day a week to GogoKid, and if I got a priority request from one of my regulars for VIPKid, I would give that to them and take that and close that slot over on GogoKid, because I knew I wanted to keep VIPKid as my main platform. And I really wanted to, I was mostly doing GogoKid at that point to fill in the gaps on slow days. So it just was hard to kind of build momentum. And then as the holidays approached and, Chinese New Year approached, I wasn't getting booked at all on GogoKid. And so I just kind of stopped. I really didn't enjoy teaching with them as much. And I figured, well, I'm getting a lot more bookings with VIPKid right now, and I'm not really enjoying the GogoKid platform as much as I thought I would. So I just devoted all of my free slots to VIPKid because that was the platform I really enjoyed, and that's where all of my regular students were, and that's where I was really getting the most bookings. So those are the main differences I've noticed between the two companies. Personally, I chose not to renew my contract with GogoKid, mostly because of that quiz. I really just didn't want to sit there for, at my computer for an hour and a half, combing through the contract to find the answers to these questions. I had already read the contract. Legalese is very hard to remember. It's that very formal legal sort of language, and so it doesn't stick in my head very well. And so just, even though I'd read it, I was going to have to go back and find exactly where the answers were. And because honestly, their questions were worded a little funny, and their answers were a little funny, and I was like, I just don't know what you want here. And so it was going to take a while, and I honestly just didn't want to spend that much time for a company that I really didn't enjoy teaching with anyway, and that I really wasn't actively teaching with. If it wouldn't have been for that, I would have renewed my contract just to have it, because really it wouldn't have hurt to have the contract, but between that quiz and just in general not wanting to, not really wanting to teach with them anyway, I chose not to renew my contract, and I am now teaching solely with VIPKid. And I honestly am happy that I just took that other option away. I think for me, the decision was more based on pressure. The decision to apply and start teaching with the second company was really more based on pressure to kind of do what everybody else was doing in a way. Like, nobody was actively pressuring me, but for me, like, it's like, oh, but everyone else is doing this, and all these veteran teachers who've been around forever are doing this, and it's a great idea. And for me, it just really didn't work very well. It also was hard to remember to move my dynos. I love dyno, and so I have dyno around on my classroom, and when I would teach for GogoKid, sometimes I totally forgot to move dyno, because I just forget that he's there sometimes. And there have been times where, I finished a GogoKid class, turned off the camera, turned around, and was like, oh, so Dino was in the background the entire lesson. That's probably not good. Never got reprimanded for it, but, still, like, not the best thing in the world to forget to take their competitor's mascot out of your background. So there were just a bunch of reasons. It was hard switching between the two platforms. It was hard balancing my schedule, and I just overall didn't enjoy teaching for GogoKid quite as much as I thought I would. For me, it's VIPKid. I teach for them. I love them. If I want to go to a different company or do something else, I think next time, if I were to make that decision, I would stop teaching with VIPKid to go to the other company. I really have a hard time balancing two different companies. It's just not really how I'm programmed. It just didn't work very well for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some good information out of it if you are looking for one company or another. Again, both I think have merits and both have some drawbacks, as with anything. So if you have any questions or you have any comments, if you teach for both companies, I would love to hear about your experience. Do you like it? Is it tricky balancing? What do you find? What do you find is the difference between the two? Please leave me a comment, and let me know also if there are other questions that you guys have, if there's anything else you would like to know about teaching ESL online, about blindness or visual impairment from my experience. If you have suggestions, thoughts, questions, let me know. I would love to I would love to get some ideas for things that you guys are interested in, so I can make more videos that actually are things that you would enjoy seeing. With that said, if you would like to become a VIPKid teacher, I will leave my referral link in the description box below. Feel free to click on that if you want my help through the hiring process, and then send me an email so that I know that you used my link. That way I can have a way to get in contact with you to help you through the process, check in with you, all that good stuff. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome weekend or an awesome day. You might not be watching this on Friday. You might be watching this any other time. So I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.